So I will call to order this meeting of the Greenfield Community Preservation Committee on June 27th, 2024. It is 5:36 p.m. This meeting is being recorded by the Community Preservation Committee. And if any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. I don't see anyone else here, so I'm guessing not. We'll do a roll call for who's here. Susan,
Here.
Wisty,
Here.
Donna,
Here.
Garth is here. He's temporarily not.
Booting up his computer.
David is not here. Amy is not here. And Becky is here.
Here.
Thank you. I was going down the list of members on the agenda and your name wasn't on there, so that I think
Oh, yeah.
blanked for a second.
You will be on the next one.
All right, so we do have a quorum. First, we're gonna have a public comment period. And a note that no discussion or comments will be entertained unless requested upon by the chairperson of the board or committee. So if there are any public comments, give people a minute in case anyone's walking in, but I don't see anyone.
You have to let Garth know he's off the hook on the minutes.
Yeah, Garth, I don't know if you heard, but Susan's doing the minutes tonight. Okay.
Thank you.
I knew you would be happy. Jeff.
All right, and hearing no public comments, we will close that period and move on. So our first item is approval of minutes from
I can't talk to you right-
5/3/2024.
I can't talk to you right now. I'm in a meeting and I'm taking minutes. Okay, all right, bye.
Want to make a motion on the minutes from
Sure, I move
May
that we
23rd.
accept the minutes from May 24,
May 23rd?
May 23rd.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion that was seconded. Any other discussion on the minutes? I did not have any. Since we are partly remote here, we are supposed to do roll call votes for all votes. So we'll do a roll call vote for approval of the minutes. Susan,
Yes,
Wisty,
Yes,
Donna,
Yes.
Garth,
Yes,
Becky.
Yep.
And I am a yes, so that passes unanimously. All right, moving right along. So we have a number of new business items to discuss tonight. First on the list is a reminder that our first meeting in July will be election of officers. And I have some good news and bad news on that, which is that I am not going to have time to be chair next year. So that's the bad news. The good news is it's because my wife is pregnant and we're going to have our first kid. So I'm going to need a little more personal time than
yes, you
I can
are.
devote to this. So I'm mentioning it now so that people can think about if they would like to be chair going forward.
And
at
does
the
that
next
start
meeting.
in January?
July. So we'll vote at the next meeting and then that person
And
next year.
Okay,
Yeah. And then that would run for a whole year.
okay.
So if anyone has any thoughts about being chair or vice chair, you got until our next meeting to think about that. All right. And moving on then. So we have review city council action on fiscal year 24 project recommendations.
Which is pretty simple, that the Greenfield City Council accepted all of your recommendations for this past funding cycle. So those are all approved and moving on forward. Great, pretty awesome.
So now they're going to you to work on the grant agreements. And then once those are signed, then the money will be dispersed, I guess.
Yep, yeah, project can start, yep.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? So the bocce ball stuff is already done.
That was from the previous fiscal.
Oh, I guess I don't know what this year's.
I don't even know what the list is for I don't even.
Here, I can do a whole.
All right, Christian will do a quick
Yeah.
rundown on what
Yeah.
the project.
Garden
is.
theater and the cornice and we're doing some more trail work, the trail wayfinding. We're doing a shade shelter at Hillside Park along with the walking path at Hillside Park.
Here it is.
Here we go.
Go.
So last year, there was the barn rehabilitation at the Franklin County Agricultural Society, the fairgrounds. The Historical Society doing some document preservation work. The Museum of Our Industrial Heritage, restoring some antique shop equipment. CSO, expanding the Wall Street Shelter. Kim Boas and the Greenfield Recreation Department restoring trails in Highland Park. Greenfield Pickleball, and the Recreation Department, doing the feasibility work for a court expansion. Recreation Department, adding a path at the Greenfield High School in order, to allow ADA accessibility to the track. Right now, that's just grass, so you need a path onto it. Recreation Department, doing the bocce courts at Beacon Park, which is now complete.
And drinking fountain.
Drinking fountain.
And parking spaces, yep.
Mm.
Recreation Department, doing the Shattuck Park Fitness Cluster, which got done over the winter, I believe, or early spring. And then Recreation Department doing site amenities, which is like concrete, ping pong tables, concrete, cornhole boards at a few different.
I saw those.
parks. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are almost done. There's a few things that still need to get installed. And then this year, which just got approved by City Council, the Garden Cinema doing some facade improvements. Tim Graders LLC doing cornice restoration. Do you know what a cornice is? It seems like
The thing at the top of the building.
Everyone had to
the
look that up.
fancy,
Yeah.
the fancy thing at the top of the
Okay.
building.
Yep.
Which building?
So 278 Main, so that's above, like rise above and above where
Where I get
Green Space
acupuncture.
is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Tim Grader also doing downtown housing feasibility. That's over above NUM's Taekwondo. That whole block. Oxbow Design Build Co-op doing a 2-family, potentially 3-family house over on Hope Street. Habitat for Humanity doing a 1-family house up on Petty Plain Road, right near the fairgrounds, near the Solar Village. John McGee and the Recreation Department installing bike racks at a couple of Greenfield parks. The Recreation Department doing improvements at Hillside Park, which I think Donna was saying, which includes like making a whole circle around the entire park for a walking path, as well as a shade structure over the benches next to the splash pad, so people can actually sit in the shade there. It gets really sunny out.
Yeah.
And then finally, Recreation Department, kind of like a part 2 to the what they got funded through the city's capital funding to actually put up signage in Highland Park. Whereas right now it's very informal.
Yeah.
Formalizing it, putting actual signage up in there.
Great.
That's everything for the last 2 years.
So is that all the
Habitat
money?
has broken ground, and like there was a foundation poured last time I went up there on Petty Plain Road, so that's underway. I would expect they would submit some sort of receipt pretty soon.
Yep, yeah, I've been in touch with them. They're gonna sign their grant agreement and been working on that with them on the affordable housing restriction as well.
Nice.
Sorry, you had a question.
Just so I know there's a certain amount of money every year. Are you so far just spending it all? Are you saving any for?
It's been spent, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird how we're doing it, because it's like part of the previous year's
Yeah.
funding with the current year's funding, and
But this year's
Um,
plan is to just use up what was from the current fiscal year. And then from here on out, you'll be working with a very certain number every single time from one single fiscal year, even if
Yeah.
it's slightly less.
yeah,
But
but we have been using the full amount
Yeah.
each year so far, because it's only been about, it was like
330.
330.
And we get over $1 million worth of requests.
Yes,
So,
of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
I went to that training, they did
Mm, mhm.
one and all the different
Yeah.
things that people were
Nice.
doing, and it's really interesting. Sometimes they hold back funds
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they can add it up to a bigger project
Yeah.
some years down the
Yeah.
line,
Mhm.
which I thought was an interesting idea.
Yeah,
What-
those people get,
They get money. I know.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
One thing that we did do for this year is, we have been setting aside 10% into like each of the categories, the historic, housing and recreation.
So,
And then the rest of it is flexible and can go to anything.
yeah,
But this year we actually did 30% into housing and 10% into the others. So if there weren't any housing projects,
Yeah.
like that money would roll over.
And that's required by the state.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
at least 10% has to
Yeah,
go into.
that
each
was-
category.
I went to that boot camp thing too. I thought it was really good,
It was
even
great.
having been on for 2 years.
Yeah,
already.
right, right.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
gonna be another couple others
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is just great work. Great work. Good for you guys.
Okay. Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
All right, any other
Another-
discussion on that? Yeah, Susan.
Yeah, Christian, when we did the analysis, there's Christian, are you gonna bring up the thing about Tim Grader's cornice project? Or
Yep.
should I?
That's the next
Oh,
item
that's
on the
next week?
agenda.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, I'll wait.
All right, so getting to that then, the next item on the agenda is discuss budgets for CPA funded projects and order of disbursement of funds when non-CPA funds are involved.
Yeah, Susan, I mean, you're the one that answered the question
Right.
at Ways and Means, if you want to speak to that
Sure.
situation.
We learned, Christian got a communication from Tim Grader that he had gotten a new estimate on what it would take to fix the cornice. And it was somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000. So rather than the $50,000 we originally were talking about with him, it had gotten down to that. And he had in his proposal had put in 28.8, I believe, as his commitment to the project. So when I was asked about this, I said that, our money is not first in. And it seems to me that, and the reason I said that is that it would seem to me that since this is not a project we are asking someone to do, that they have come to us and need funds in order to do the project. And therefore, the money that they have put in doesn't change. And so our money then goes in after they have expended theirs. And so that was the reason that I said that. And if I was in error, I am sorry and regret that, but it just seemed to me that that was the logic we had been working from. So please forgive me if other people think that that is wrong and we have to make a different policy.
Yeah, I know.
Does that make sense? If it
Yeah,
doesn't-
yeah. Isn't that, that does, sound familiar. Like, I know we've talked about that before. For some reason, I was thinking that was for like the projects the city was doing, like they had to use other funds, or I don't know, like, is it in any of the grant agreements about like the order and the?
So that's where this came up, is where it should be. It should be in the grant agreement, and I read through the entire thing again to double check, because I'm surprised if we don't say anything about that currently, or we use this New Bedford's. I mean, they've been using this for a few years. I'm surprised they hadn't added it yet. And it does not currently speak to it at all. So I do have some draft language I can share if we want to align with what Susan shared with the city council, and what, I mean, at least from my perspective, it felt like you guys had always implied that, like it feels like it's been danced around before, so it seems like what you all had previously kind of thought of, but it's up to you.
I don't remember that issue coming up.
It was kind of talked about when you talked about like the capital funds and the CPA funds being used on the same project.
Right.
But then the Tim Grader is even
Oh,
more of an extreme example where it's not even public funds, it's private funds and
Is it-
public funds.
Is it a safety issue? Like if that cornice doesn't get fixed, it's gonna fall down on. No, it's someone's head.
Historical
Oh, it's
preservation
historical, okay.
piece.
Yeah.
But
the issue from my perspective is that he came to us and said he could put in a certain amount of money. And now is saying that he doesn't need that much. It doesn't need the amount of money to finish the job. Our money was coming in to finish the job, because one of the comments he made to us was that we asked him what would happen if he didn't get the funds from us, and he said, well, it would just take longer.
Mhm.
So, and then things would be in worse shape and it might be more expensive to do it. So it just seems to me that the assumptions we were all working on were that he had a certain amount of money that he was putting aside for this, and we were assisting him in the process.
That makes sense.
I agree.
And I don't think you even necessarily need to think of this just for Tim Grader's project. A
Right.
lot of projects, it doesn't happen very often nowadays, but they can come in under budget.
Right,
And if
right.
there's private and CPA funding involved, and it comes $2,000 under budget, who gets that windfall? And unless you spell something out, it'll be up to people to decide after the fact, which is probably not the best way to do things.
Right.
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 So, yeah, so I can share, what I put together. It's just another sentence that gets slotted into the grant agreement.
Does Tim know
Right,
this?
it's sort of whether it's
must have, because he
all
came-
X and then Y,
You
or
know?
if it's a percentage.
I don't.
Right,
Only
'cause
communication.
if we were initially in for 50%, are we, would we still be in for 50% of the smaller amount?
Mm.
Well, that's another thought.
That's another way of thinking about it. But my communication with Tim has just been him sharing the updated budget. And he actually doesn't have a concrete budget. He just had a number that was still somewhat flexible. And the latest update that it was going to be in the $30,000 to $35,000 range. And so this is what I came up with to reflect at least what Susan and the City Council Ways and Means Committee had talked about. But it reads, if applicable, private funds of the amount budgeted in the approved project application shall be expended in their entirety prior to the expenditure of CPA funds unless otherwise agreed upon by the grantee and the Greenfield CPC. So that would mean whatever Tim had budgeted in the project application or any applicant that had private funds involved, they'd have to, the first part of the project, you spend through all of that first before you start dipping into the CPA funds.
This is new, right?
This
So,
this is new, and it's to address the situation that has come up, but it will be there going forward for all applicants. This isn't just for Tim.
And that would include all of the projects. for
So
this year.
it also applied to for example, Isaac Mass's project at the Garden Cinema. Right now, his project, as far as I know, is still the same budget, but if it comes in under budget, this would address that in that circumstance where the windfall would be in the CPA's favor.
So he said that the total project cost was $38.50 and he was asking for 20,000. And we fully
His
funded.
number there actually wasn't summed correctly. If you notice, if you add the line items, it's actually closer to 50K.
Yeah,
Which
so,
the City Council was aware of, at least the Ways and Means Committee was aware.
yeah, 22 and 22, that's 44, yep.
Yep.
I guess I'm trying to think through the implications of like, if people know that that's going to be in there, is that going to change how much they're putting in their application, that they're going to contribute? And then maybe they would put less and ask for more, put that they're contributing less and ask for more. Because then even if they got, so let's say it was 50,000 and they said they were gonna do 25 and then we gave them 25. But then if they said, well, I'll do 10,000, you give me 40,000, and then we cut it down to 25, they would only have to do 10,000 first, then use the 25. You know what I mean? Like it incentivizes people to put less in as what they're going to be using.
Mhm.
Because I mean, they can spend more than what they say they're going to in the application, so. I don't know, I'm just trying to like think through.
Yeah.
Well, that would, but the more they match, the better their score, so they're more likely to get funded if they have more of a match. So,
it seems like you're it might seem like, oh, you're springing this on us now,
Hmm.
rather than saying, going forward as of 2025, this will be how this will be addressed. And if there are other discrepancies, there need to be a conversation, right?
So would you suggest for this specific example, since we hadn't addressed this before, to have Tim Grader get the full 20K no matter what?
So
I don't think it's our responsibility to subsidize private entities. I think what we're trying to, we're trying to, develop, we're trying to be supportive of, of things that people need and trying to make sure that they can do it. But I don't think it's we did not put out an RFP for cornice repair. If we had done that and we had said, we have $20,000 to put toward it, what can you put in? Then I would feel differently about this. But we didn't do that. What we did was say, what do you need to make this whole? And he gave us, documentation that said that was what he needed. Now he doesn't need that much. So I don't see why we should change the way we were working with him.
And just real quick, the other thing about like whether to do this now or to start it later is that like none of the projects that just got approved have gone through the process of like negotiating the grant agreement with the city yet. So this is still kind of like before that process
Right.
is happening and developing the grant agreement. So it's not like they've already seen what the grant agreement would be and then we're changing it. This
Okay.
is before
Right.
they would be even seeing the
Okay.
draft. of
Okay.
Grant.
I see what you're saying.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, it also seems, so city council asked this question of Susan is whose funds are in first. And I don't know, they didn't explicitly say it, maybe they did, but it sounds like they would have been very hesitant to approve the project unless that was the case. So it's not necessarily even the Greenfield CPC, it's also
Yeah.
the city council seems to want to do it this way. That was the only way to get the project passed. So Susan was asked on the spot, of course.
Yeah.
But
So, question,
Mhm.
what is he now saying it's gonna come in as?
30 to 35
30 to
with a very
35.
specific budget coming soon.
So I never like did the math. So I always just like went with the 3850 and we pledged 20,000 of the 3850. So we were doing more than 50% in that instance anyway. I mean, it's true, this is actually $49,000. So just pointing out that we gave 20,000 on a total ticket price of 38. Just saying. I mean, if we.
Depending on which math, if you
Yeah,
go by the number and not what it
yeah.
actually adds up. to.
Right,
But it was
exactly.
His map, right?
It was his math,
That made
yeah.
it 50.
Yeah.
So why not consider the notion of percentage? So what you would have the percentage you would have
Right.
contributed to what is now the cost,
I guess,
just to be,
yeah, I mean, to me,
Clear.
that, I feel like that makes it a little overly complicated maybe.
Yeah.
Whereas like.
So what did he
spend
say
the
he
money
was
you-
putting in?
28.
28.8, okay, I mean,
so we would
And
just
I-
do 10.
I think the thing I like about this is that it also says unless otherwise agreed upon by the grantee.
Right,
So-
so we could complete.
Yeah, they could come and
Yeah.
say like, oh, actually,
No.
here,
Yeah,
I would need to do this, and then we could vote on whether to allow that to happen. There could be exceptions.
yeah, I mean,
If
I think
necessary.
we can still make up the difference, but he puts in what he said he was gonna put in, which. That makes sense to me.
It makes sense to me.
yeah. Does he know that the math was wrong at this point?
He does.
Initial-
When I went to send it to the city council, I double checked the math and it was off and I told him, he said, oh, yeah, your math is correct.
So he really only needs 10 of the 20 that,
But anything that he didn't use would get returned to us.
Well, it would,
Right.
it would never leave.
Oh,
the city
yeah,
coffers.
it wouldn't leave. Sorry, I was thinking of city budget stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would get reimbursed and then he would only get reimbursed for the 10,000 or whatever. Or if it ended up costing more than he thinks it will with his estimate, then,
Yeah.
it could be the whole.
And I think it'd be good to emphasize the point that this is Tim Grader's situation that has caused this question to be
Yeah.
asked, and then we're putting language in response to this specific situation coming for the first time. But
Yeah.
we needed this language all along. It's not just
Yeah.
because of this one
Right.
right,
situation. This is gonna be
Right.
Yeah.
useful and necessary for the future. For
Yeah.
example, for Isaac's project or any other
Right,
projects with private
Yeah.
funding. all along, so.
Yeah, that language looks good to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the grant agreement that he's going to be provided with.
Yep.
So it's not too late the horse has not left the barn.
Yeah. Should we maybe like motion and vote on adding that language or,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if we need to.
I don't
because
remember if you ever actually voted on this grant agreement.
I don't think
or
we
not.
voted on grant agreement stuff, but I guess I'll just
That's
say if there are no objections, Christian will go ahead and add that.
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
yeah. And thank you for coming up with that. That's
Yeah,
good.
it's good that it came up, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so this grant agreement does get reviewed by the city's attorney. So if they approved this last year in its current form, there'll be this extra language. My department looked it over with me. It doesn't seem like it could cause any kind of issues. But it will get reviewed by council before it gets finalized. And so I don't know if you guys have looked at the grant agreement in detail before. I think I might have thrown it up on the screen for a quick second at a previous meeting. But I did add this year that there will be kind of more stringent and specific quarterly reporting dates. Right now, I'm checking in with people every 3 months based on when they like signed the agreement. And it's like a bunch of different dates.
Mhm.
This time around, everyone gets the same end of the quarter.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And alongside that, so I'm sure kind of going over, yes, it's there's a new project status report, 1 page every quarter. Describing where you're at with the project, what the timeline looks like, any issues, pick when they're expected to complete signatures.
Okay.
Whereas right now, it's mainly just emails, asking people to give an update. So everyone gives their own version of an update, but this keeps it consistent among everyone. And I think this is not overly burdensome at all in any way.
Yeah, that's
great.
great.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great.
So big thank you to New Bedford CPC and their coordinator, who I don't know why it's them, but they come up with a really good set of documents. So all of ours are modeled after theirs. I modeled after their project status report for this one.
Nice.
See if there's anything else relevant to the current conversation. I think we can do everything else under the reviewing CPC project updates.
Okay.
That's right. You said the application process in your last, right? And I noticed that there was questions that 4 and 5, I think, that didn't have any
Yeah,
text in them.
they were in the middle of that conversation last time.
Oh,
So that's where we've been picking up.
See?
Perfect. Good observation though, because there definitely is nothing there right now.
I read it, yeah.
All right, any,
Good for you.
anyone have anything else on that? We can move on our agenda here. All right, so the next item is discussing plans for our annual CPA public hearing in July. As you probably learned, we have to do a public hearing once a year, to get input and, we've been doing that in July, so, I don't know if we've talked about the date yet, if we're just gonna do it at our like end of July meeting, whatever the date is for that,
Yeah, July 25th.
July 25th. So that's our next regular meeting date. Unless anyone feels like we need to have a special meeting before that,
July 23rd is a Tuesday,
25th.
25th.
And how long is that meeting?
Well, it's just, yeah, it depends. The first time we did it, it was a little bit longer, and then last time there were only like a handful of people there and
Yeah.
it was pretty quick.
Right through, yeah.
So, it would be good to get more people there, to like give us more input and feedback and stuff.
Is it recorded and then made available to the public to after? Is it on the city website?
It's on GCTV's website and YouTube,
Yeah.
and then eventually there will be a link to it on the CPC's webpage.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't,
You could have a boilerplate that people could look at and respond to either through emails or other ways, instead of feeling like, oh, but the public hearing requires that the members are there listening to the public. So that.
yeah, we have to have like an in-person.
Okay.
Well, in-person or virtual.
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But, Yeah, and we do kind of two big things each year. One is like the public hearing where we're kind of getting overall feedback from people and like ideas and we kind of use that to update our plan every year if any updates need to be made. And then later in the year, once we get all the applications, then we do another like big survey and like ask people to like tell us which projects they like and which ones they don't and rank them and
Okay.
everything. But this one's more general, like, do you think we should fund housing projects more? Do you think we should fund these? Or, like, what's your priorities? How, what have we done in the past that you liked or didn't like? And
Mhm.
how can we, better, meet your expectations going forward? So that's kind of what this meeting is. And in the past, we've done like a brief PowerPoint presentation, just kind of giving a little overview of like the projects that have been approved in the past.
Great.
And like, I guess when we know our funding for the next year, do we know our funding by for this next cycle?
So you'll know that at some point in around early August,
Okay.
when the books are closed out.
So we won't know that yet before the public hearing.
You probably have an approximate number.
Okay. Yeah.
So I wonder if when the publicity goes out for that meeting, if we could include those questions, because if people knew that we were going to be asking certain things, that was the type of information that we wanted,
Yeah,
that might make it more interesting to them rather than just coming to listen.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, we usually do a press release too. So yeah, maybe that could be part of the press release would be like some specific questions that
Yeah.
like, tell us what types of projects you want and yeah, the things that I said earlier.
Yeah, those were good.
And I know we've been working with like the city communication director. Is that the position that I'm thinking of?
Yep, so he'll get it posted on city
Yeah.
social.
Who's
Yeah.
that?
Yes, Matt Conway, who's great.
So, yeah, I guess I can work on that presentation, or we can work on that presentation. Basically just update the one from last year.
Yep.
I guess at that meeting, at the beginning, we'll be voting on new chair and vice chair, so whoever's chair then could do the presentation.
Oh.
Or I could just do that presentation
Yeah.
since I've been working on it, but,
In the last 2 years, you've had it at John's on, but I think you can just keep it here. You have the room book for that evening here.
Okay.
And even the people we had at the first John's on public hearing your first year, I think probably could have fit in there.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the most busiest ones you'll ever see. So.
yeah, probably. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Just have it at a regular meeting time. and have
Yeah,
it here.
Yeah, sure.
Press release, yeah, Garth.
As I said, I thought like last year we just did it as it was just our July meeting,
Yeah,
had a larger chunk set aside for the public hearing portion.
yeah, that's what we did last year.
And then if we're here, we're not like up on a stage all at once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like city council. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I guess we'll go with that plan then. Anyone have any other ideas or things that we should do for our public hearing? Any differently than last year?
Good.
No? Okay.
I'll get the public hearing notice posted in the recorder,
Okay.
2 weeks in advance. And then, your CPC annual budget is for that, so we should be good to go.
Okay. Great.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
the only other thing that I can think of is one of the things that we have talked about wanting is more feedback, on the projects, when we ask people for their opinion on how they would rank stuff, I don't know if something like about that, even like asking people, do you have any suggestions or whatever? I just know if I personally went to a meeting and I knew that they were soliciting opinions that they were really going to listen to, I'd be more interested in the meeting, in attending.
So how do you get that across?
Yeah.
I don't, that's,
What's the
I don't know
magic,
if we have,
message to,
I guess, just to mention it, because you said it's gonna be on social media, right?
Yep.
It's gonna be on social media, it'll be in the newspaper. Will it be, I don't know where else, like, I don't have a TV or I don't look at social media, I'm kind of in a.
Yeah, I don't,
well, it's, we want to hear what you think, and also maybe there's a hook with, these are your tax dollars, so, use your voice. Yeah.
I think in general, it seems like people are more interested in telling us what they like or don't like about the projects that have been presented.
Yeah.
That are up for funding,
Yeah,
rather than just like a more general.
okay,
But I mean, it would be good to get more, like you're saying, but it just seems harder to get people to
Yeah.
like that,
Right.
It's
if it's
easier when
more
it's something
specific.
concrete.
Sorry, Susan has a hand. Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, sorry, Susan, I didn't see it up there.
Yeah, if I remember last time correctly, there were some people who came out with some ideas and said, this is what I'm thinking about, would this fit? And we could actually say yes or no to those things as part of this. But in general, it was, we had folks saying things like there should be more money put into housing or,
Yes.
that kind of thing. So I think people get it, but I would like to see, I think putting the questions in to, putting some basic questions, what do you want us to emphasize? What do you think about the things we've done so far? Is there anything that we're not doing that you think we should be doing? Those kinds of questions and putting those up front, I think that would be great.
Mhm. Okay.
So like a slideshow presentation, a slideshow of finished products, projects?
In the,
Include some this time around. actually.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
There are
them
some this
now.
time.
Yeah.
I think last year we didn't
First
have
year.
anything
No,
finished.
we,
Oh,
yeah,
right, it's only
yeah,
been 2
yeah.
years, yeah.
Last year and it took a while to get the contracts out. There was a lot of back and forth with the lawyers, so everything got
Yeah,
pushed
for the
back.
first ones, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, last year we did like mention what projects were funded the previous year, but there wasn't anything done yet, so we didn't have that.
Yeah, yeah.
So that would be a good,
Mhm.
we can start that this year and then
Yeah.
it'll build going
Right.
forward.
Maybe
So-
4%. I think a lot of people probably don't even really know what
Yeah.
this money can be used for.
Right.
Mhm.
It's,
I didn't really until I started.
it's tricky.
Yeah,
I mean, our original application said, which area is this for? And people would check all of them because it seemed like there was so much overlap, Well, it's open space, but it's recreation,
Right. right.
But it's in a historic park, so-
Yeah,
Yeah,
all right. Well, it sounds like we've got a good plan then for that hearing. So that's the last item on our agenda under new business. I guess we didn't really have this on the agenda and I should have said this earlier, but we do have a new member. Sorry, I didn't say that. I was nervous about the whole like telling people I wasn't gonna be chair anymore. I was like flying through at the beginning. So I don't know if you just want to introduce yourself, but.
well, I think most people know me, except for maybe Christian and you. I worked for the Franklin County Chamber for about 8 years when I first moved here. And I've been at the hospital as manager of volunteer services for the last 10. I've just left there. Have a little more time on my hands, not saying anything about that. But I'm really invested in Greenfield. I've lived here 20 years and I care very much about my town, what it does and what it looks like. So I have a sort of an interest in how things end up looking. That's probably my main focus. But I represent a lot of Greenfield because of the people that I've worked with and all the different organizations that I've served. So yeah, I'm just thrilled to be part of this. And I love the projects that you've done. I think they're really important. And I think there's a lot more out there that could be done.
Yeah,
If people want to take responsibility for actually filling out, the application is pretty onerous. I mean, it seems like a lot of work to get a few $1,000s on some of the projects that.
Yeah, it depends on the project, because we've also heard that like, well, this is pretty easy for like, $100,000.
Yeah, for 100,000.
it's 12 questions.
Yeah.
And right now, 2 of them are blank.
And can this be filled out, obviously, online?
We are going to be doing a,
Just trying.
Yeah,
Like a
people
fillable
have had a
PDF.
way that you can use Adobe Acrobat to fill it out, but I'm gonna find a way to make it much more easier to like make it a fillable
Yeah.
document.
Yeah,
At our-
that's
that
one
would
of
be
the
a big
things,
help,
yeah.
at our previous meetings, we just went over the whole application and changed things. And so we have an updated application for this year that we just went through. But does everyone just want to like say who your rep, like how you were appointed to this committee? Because everyone's kind of appointed by different
Yeah, I was
groups.
the mayor. I wrote to her and said, when I saw there was an opening, I said I'd like to do it.
Just so that
But
know how
Nice.
we're all representing.
I don't remember. Is this a community person or the mayor? I just don't remember.
It either would have been city council president or the mayor.
I still don't remember.
I think you were the mayor. I think
it
you were the
actually
mayor.
says on the
I think it,
Yeah.
Yeah, on the
membership
page,
list.
Yeah,
what year, and it seems like we're still missing a housing authority person.
yeah, but we had the director and he left his job, and so
Yes.
they're in the process of
Yeah,
looking.
I can update that a little bit if you want.
Okay.
I'm the council rep. We now are down to 4 people to interview for the housing authority director. And so once so I would expect that by August or September, we will have somebody.
great.
So
Great. Garth, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm double checking. I think
Yeah, you're mayor.
I'm pretty sure I was a mayoral appointment.
And then Travis Jerry, I'm the Conservation Commission representative on the bottom.
And you're also chair of the Conservation Commission.
I have been.
Not
I
for a
won't-
while.
I won't be next month. I have
When is
been
this
there.
baby coming?
December, but there's a lot to do between now.
Yes, there is,
Yeah,
including sleep.
and I'm on the Recreation Commission, I'm the chair.
And then Dave is the Historical Commission and Amy is the other city council.
Planning Board.
Oh, no, Planning Board. Yeah.
Wait,
How many city? There's 2 city council.
Yeah, so city council is Wisty and Susan,
oh, we see. Mhm.
and mayoral is Becky and Garth.
Oh, okay. All right. I miscounted when I was keeping track there. All right, so that's everybody for now. Okay, so we have some old business, discuss and finalize CPA processes for fiscal year 25.
Could we actually do the
Oh.
CPC project updates first?
Sure.
And then, because that way you guys won't feel rushed and you can just
Yeah,
finish up the
yeah.
meeting with talking about all of your documents.
Yeah, sure. Review CPC project updates.
Yeah, okay, so I've done some of them already. The one other main one is, this might look familiar to some of you. And might look not very familiar to others of you. Way back before the first round started, you had a disbursement policy that you all approved, which was modeled after Northampton's. Currently, we're not really following it at all. Our Greenfield's processes usually are typically different from other municipalities. And so in the previous version of this, this is new. This is the language that I think would work better. But Northampton says something about 1/3 upfront, 1/3 doing your mid-project report. There is no mid-project report, and then 1/3 upon project completion. The way that it's been going is that people request reimbursement as we go along. And so this language formalizes that and reflects what's actually happening with the previous round and this upcoming round. Which says partial funding in installments via request for reimbursement accompanying quarterly reports. Requests may be made less frequently at the discretion of the project. Requests may be made more frequently with approval of the CPC. Final payment will be made upon completion of work. And that is really just reflecting reality and then of course above. It says that it is possible to accommodate alternative funding schedules with prior approval of the CPC. So if for some reason there was a wonky situation where the reimbursement method didn't work and you could find another legal way of kind of carrying things out, that of course be available as an option. So you're not locked into this, but this is what works for most people. Like for example, the Fairgrounds project, they paid their contractor the 31,000. They sent the copy of the invoice, the copy of the voided check that they had sent. And then we sent them the 31,000. So it's a really secure way of confirming, yep, this was paid for.
Right.
In terms of equity, though, I mean, what if somebody has a great project, they have no money to start it? Can you give money upfront?
Well, I think that's what this
that what
is
this is addressing?
saying,
There's-
the
if there's-
alternative funding schedules, which I think is also pertinent in that we were last time talking about the Historical Society and how they're kind of at a standstill and they were asking for money. But this is all something that needs to be worked out before the contract, correct?
Yeah,
If we're gonna do an alternative funding schedule and somebody says, we don't have a lot of money, can we do it this way? And it's at our discretion, that's great, but it has to be figured out before anybody puts pen to paper on contracts.
correct. And so I think this chart is like, this is how we prefer to do it. This would be the best way to do it. But when I come and talk to these people at the beginning of July, and if they say, well, it's not gonna work for us. At your July meeting, you guys could consider an alternative. But this is like the starting point to work from. And this is what's worked for others, so.
Looks good to me.
So this is something you did vote on at some point, so it'd be good to get a motion to amend this.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the disbursement policy as amended at our meeting here tonight.
Second?
Any other discussion on that?
Could you tell me who seconded?
Yeah, Wisty.
Okay, thank you, Wisty.
Sorry, I should have said that. All right, hearing no other discussion on this, we'll vote on the amended disbursement policy. Susan,
Yes,
Wisty,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes,
Garth,
Yes,
Becky,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that passes unanimously.
Perfect.
Yep.
Great, so my list was that, talking about the private funds. Next is preservation restrictions. So that's another thing, like Donna brings up, that we need to kind of figure out sort of before the project is signs off on the grant agreement. But of course, you can't really finalize the preservation restriction until the historical preservation restriction until after the project is completed, because then you'll have the actual photos and all that of what the project looks like. So previously, you guys had indicated that you would like historical preservation restrictions, at least for the current slate of projects, to cover only the work being done by the CPC. For example, the historic cornice, the preservation restriction would protect just the cornice. It wouldn't apply to the rest of the building. And then the other piece that you guys had indicated, which is really, this is like the main core of a preservation restriction, is that it would be for 30 years. And so I've been reaching out to people, and the first piece of it only applying to just the work completed by the CPC is pretty atypical. Most of the time, a preservation restriction protects the entire historic character of a building. I don't
yeah,
think there's anything preventing you from only applying it to just the CPC funded portion. And I think Isaac had expressed, and maybe even Tim, that it'd be prohibitive for them to do additional historic work on their building to have a full-blown preservation restriction on their building. So that's something for you guys to just be aware of. It's atypical, and I can work out a way to do it. There just isn't a current really good model to do it based off of, so it'd be something
that's really
unique.
tricky.
Yeah,
Because we preserve the cornice, for example, just the cornice. I mean, it almost feels a little bit silly to me. It's a historical building. And we're saying, obviously, it's a historical building, ergo the cornice is historical. So we're preserving the cornice, but we're not gonna worry about asking for anything else. And then, you know, the vinyl windows come along, or somebody paints it, you know, or I don't know, somehow something. Then doesn't that just like ruin the historical character of the building? And cornice be damned, like then now so you've got a historical cornice, but it looks like a Volkswagen Bug or something, I don't know.
Who's requesting the preservation, this, it's sort of historic preservation?
so that was the
Yeah.
condition that the CPC put on the project. And it's usually very strongly recommended because you're giving funding to a private organization. And this is what you're really getting in exchange for it, is the protection of the item that you're getting for 30 years. there's a whole thing that Stuart sent us about the anti-aid amendment that it's strongly recommended have a preservation restriction.
Mhm.
So what would happen if the cornice got graffitied?
It'd be up to the restriction would say something about keeping it in good maintenance, so it'd be up to Tim Grader or on his own dollar to keep it in good condition. Same thing for the garden cinema, the windows that you guys funded got smashed. He's expected to fix them up in the same nature that he put them in.
And it's kind of more like they can't, go in and rip it off and put a stainless steel beam there instead, and like doing actual work.
I
to
see.
Change the character.
Okay,
So, I mean, I think it does make sense to have, like if you're doing this on your building, the whole building is gonna be protected. It's just gonna make, that's more public benefit that we're getting, I guess. But
Right.
it's also more, people might be less likely to apply for
Yeah,
that
it's
money.
prohibitive.
So yeah, you had previously told those two applicants,
Yeah.
the two that are currently relevant, because they're the only ones with historic preservation restrictions at the moment that you're working on. That it would just apply just to the portion of the building that's funded by CPC. So if you decided to go a different direction, you'd be having to redirect a bit.
Yeah,
And you said this is atypical. What is typical?
It's typically, a historic preservation restriction, protects the entire exterior of a building, regardless of how much the CPC is working on.
Mhm. And so we fund the cornice, we expect the cornice. So just in the scenario, the typical scenario where the whole building or the whole facade or whatever is protected. Something that we did not fund, I mean, it's still, you could have graffiti on the lower levels. And what is the requirements for owners of historic buildings in that scenario? Do they have to clean up their graffiti? Are they more, are there any requirements to do things if there's damage when it's a historic building than when it's not?
When it's on the historic register.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure what the requirements.
but it would be, if they did repair it, they would have to repair it with the
Right,
historical
in line,
character.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the good that you're getting out of having it.
yeah.
So they couldn't just, like, I'll just rip all the bricks off and, no.
Hmm.
So I guess, I don't know if we need to, so it sounds like, I mean, we already told those two how we were doing
And
it, so.
I think there's nothing wrong with what you guys had planned on.
Yeah.
It's just very atypical, and everyone I talk to is like, why didn't we protect the whole building?
Mm,
Yeah, it's like.
And so, but then
Because we don't know what we're doing.
But then they're like,
yet.
well, there's some very specific situation this is
Mhm.
applying to. Like, yes, it's because we had the applicants, or at least Isaac was talking to us about how it would be prohibitive to him doing other work.
Right, and also a lot of other CPCs have much deeper pockets and they're putting a lot more money into said buildings.
So yeah, so that's the other piece. 30 years, that's basically as long as you can do. You either do 30
Yeah.
years or it's perpetual.
Yeah,
So you guys, for the amount of funding that Isaac and Tim are getting, you're doing 30 years, which is the max. So even a project that gets 200,000, they're gonna get the same as someone that only received that amount of funding, which is valid. You guys can totally do that, but other people called that my attention as well.
So they were saying larger projects would get like an in perpetuity.
That's what, yeah, I had a CPC coordinators group who was just sending me all the details about what they do for preservation restrictions. Yeah.
Go ahead, Susan.
There is language that, that we know that these have to have historic, that they have to be on the historic register, right?
Yep.
So in some ways, there's protection there for the, for us in terms of saying if graffiti happened and it was not cleaned up, to say, look, you're on the historic register, that's got to be cleaned up. It would be a city situation and not the CPC situation. But we do have that to fall back on for the amount of money that we have available. I don't see that we should be making those kinds of demands on folks. You know, if we're gonna do the whole facade, that's a whole different question.
right.
And I guess, I mean, there is the possibility of doing like a two-tiered thing too, like under a certain amount of money, this is what the preservation restriction looks like, and over a certain.
Yeah, that would make
Mhm.
sense.
it would look like this.
And someday maybe we'll have that.
Let the over, let,
Woo!
So I did have an idea that has not been run by any kind of council or anything.
Sure.
But there is, and I think I had shared it with you guys previously at a CPC meeting. Here's March 21st meeting. There was a few different examples of preservation restrictions. And there's this 10-year one from Great Barrington, which is 2 pages of actual text and then signatures. And the main section right here is that within 10 years of the recording of this restriction, the property shall not be willfully demolished, removed, or raised, nor any of the historic exterior features, including the masonry and historically accurate replacement windows, be willfully demolished, removed, or destroyed. And I'm thinking, if you guys do want to stick with just making it the CPC funded portion, you could very easily stick a couple words in there about it just applying to the CPC funded portion. And then of course repayment if they don't uphold the application one above. So you'd have, it wouldn't be demolished and you can't not maintain in the CPC funded portion is what it would read. So that's just the best example I could find where it'd be easy enough to tweak to what you guys are requesting.
yeah, and I mean, I think. I mean, I don't think we should change what we said we were gonna do this year.
Mhm.
For those projects. And then, I mean, before the next round of projects are done, we could, I don't know if or maybe before we start reviewing those applications, like finalize a policy going forward or something. I don't know. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts right now on if we think we should change things for the next round or.
Wasn't there just a suggestion, a quick suggestion, depending on how much money we were spending? So if we were spending a whole lot of money and doing a big deal facade thing, maybe that would be a different issue than if it were smaller.
And I guess what cutoff would we use? You know, that's the
Yeah.
hard part.
Yeah. Oh,
This one's for $250,000.
Yeah, so this is, and it was only for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for all of you is, because I do want to try and get this started with these 2 projects. So that at least we're somewhat on the same page before signing the grant agreement. I don't think we can have them get started on the project until we've at least somewhat firmed this
Yeah.
out. In case you guys end up on very different ends of the spectrum of what you'd like to do. So I'd suggest to work with this Great Barrington document, which apparently met their legal counsel's review. I'm assuming with me ours. Insert a sentence or 2 in here and remove it about being about the entire facade and change it just to cornice, just to what the garden is doing, which is like the lower window bays. Insert that in there. Make it all about Greenfield.
Can you send me that? I'm still a little confused about this historic preservation requirement. I'm just, please send me that. Just
Sure. And then the final thing would be the years. Do you guys want to stick with the 30 you had discussed previously? Or do you want to do a lesser amount like this one has?
How do people feel about that?
This is also a question for the historic commission.
Right, yeah, and I
Don't
I
think
feel
David's
like
not here.
I want to stick with what we've represented to people so far. So if that's what we've been saying, then I think for this round, then we need to stick with that. Do we change it going forward? I don't know.
I mean, it feels like if people are applying under the historic thing, like, right, 10 years is not historic. People are applying for stuff that's like 50 plus. So it's like, oh, great, here's your historic thing. It's valid for the next 7 years. Like, that doesn't feel like we're really supporting the historic portion.
Yeah, and I guess also for me, the fact that we're only doing the portion that's being restored with the CPA money, like, makes it seem like longer is less of a burden, you know?
Mhm.
Because like,
Yeah,
you just did this restoration on that part right now, so
yeah,
just maintain it for 30 years, like, you don't have to, historically do the work on the rest of the building. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we're asking them to do work on on a portion of the building. I don't think it's outrageous for us to say that we want them to keep it that way for 30 years. That's in terms of, these are old buildings already. So, they are all much older than 30 years. So it just seems to me that that makes a lot of sense. But to keep the portion of the building, at least for right now.
Okay, so I'll amend that section 1 there to change it to 30 and also tweak the language, so it's just focus on your funded project.
Okay, great.
that sounds
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Great Barrington, for.
Very good.
3 months ago.
Again. Did you have any other,
Nope, because my other 2 were Tim Grader's pricing update, that it's now in the $30,000 to $35,000 range. And that the quarterly report that I got from New Bedford is now a thing. And then just general updates, just run through them. Obviously, City Council approved stuff. Beacon Park, the bocce courts are officially completed. Christie will be sending her final report along soon. But I was able to attend that. And
I saw you throwing the ball and.
I threw 1 ball, so they got the 1 picture of me. And so that's complete. Christie also told me that the site amenities project is also very close to being completed. The ADA track is due to be done this summer. And what was the other one? Greenfield Pickleball had their first meeting between the recreation department, the consultant, and the public to start getting feedback on their design plans.
Do you know how many people?
And-
did that?
I think it was like 40 people.
Yeah.
And the Greenfield pickleball, there is now $20 in the Friends of the Greenfield Recreation. One of our, I think one of the Eagle Scouts, who did a project with Christie was like, oh, and here, oh no, someone did a little pickleball tournament
Hmm.
and then donated $20.
All
So
right.
they have a fund in
They
the
have a
Friends of
fund.
Rec.
That's good.
Right.
They can start collecting money.
And then last update, is CSO is staying the course. They're working towards getting construction started. They have their temporary situation they're working on, which the CPA is not funding. You guys are funding the brand new stuff.
Right.
Industrial Heritage said they will be done sometime before end of December, I think is what we extended.
Yeah, we extended to.
Same thing with Historical Society. And then Travis can probably speak to this one better than I can.
Oh, yeah.
The trail restoration project went before Concom and got approved, but it sounds like there was some conditions.
Yeah, just minor conditions. So yeah, that was Tuesday this week. It just got approved. The only conditions I remember was they can't do the work if there's a 1/4 inch of rain or more predicted on that day. And they have to put in some erosion control, like at the bottom of the hill, in case while they're digging it, and it rains and washes it into the wetland. So I think those are the only conditions. So yeah, technically there's a 10-day wait period, where they're not supposed to work until then, but they can start before then, but it's like an appeal period, so someone could appeal during that time. And then if it got overturned, they would have to undo what they did. So technically, they're supposed to wait 10 days, but you don't necessarily have to. It's just like,
So it's.
in case someone appeals.
I think nobody's.
I think no one's gonna appeal. Just legally, just saying. So that's where that is. I don't remember. They did say, I don't know if you know, they said like when they wanted to get started. I was thinking it was in August, but I'm not positive.
It's my recreation book.
Is that the one that they were hoping for AmeriCorps to be working with?
Yeah, actually, Appalachian Trail Club.
Uh-huh.
See, yeah.
Yeah.
That's way-
Public hearing on 6/25, I assume.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. They did say this summer, they're.
yeah,
planning on
they're
doing
trying to do it, yeah.
And they're only.
Hopefully we won't have endless range.
Yeah, and then there's also, they're waiting on a approval from Natural Heritage because there's priority habitat of rare species on that site, so they have to get approval saying that they're not going to be impacting any rare or endangered species. So I think they're waiting on that too. That's separate from the Conservation Commission thing. So anyway, separate elements.
And then otherwise we have the new slate of projects, which will be signing grant agreements, starting next week.
Cool.
The Historical Society, I know when we spoke last time, they were hoping to get money up front. And then we talked about, well, maybe like a purchase order, or how can we do
I
something?
communicated that to them and they said that would work, and then they haven't been in touch with me since, so it sounds like they haven't
Okay,
tried to order the stuff yet.
okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the updates.
All right, so you're free to talk about your documents.
Yeah, so we only have one thing left on the agenda, which is discuss and finalize CPA processes for fiscal year 25.
Could I just say one other thing that
Sure.
I think I would like to really consider having attendance things, like some kind of attendance requirements.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how you,
Yeah, what's the enforcement?
what's the,
mechanism?
right, I mean, is it that, like, do you, if I stop showing up, do you guys like go to Christie and be like, hey, she's not working out? I mean, who is, do we all have different supervisors? Like, if you stop showing up, do we have to go to the mayor and say, hey?
So
Your
I'd like to
appointee didn't
spend
show
some
up,
time to
you
think
know?
about that because,
Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think other commissions have some membership attendance requirements.
yeah.
yeah,
Must be some other, I feel like I've served on committees where they've had,
Yeah.
if you didn't come 3 times in a row,
yeah,
you're out. But also just the communication, like if you're not coming,
Mhm.
you need to let Christian know you're not coming.
Yeah.
right,
You know,
yeah,
that's not very rude to
Yeah,
just not
yeah.
show up and not say anything.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know like the Conservation Commission has it like written into the ordinance, like it says, like you have to attend this many meetings. Otherwise, you can be removed by the mayor. Whereas we don't have anything like that, written into the CPA ordinance. And again, it's a little more complicated because everyone's appointed by different people and
right,
it's not just, I think it's easier on bodies where the mayor is the appointing authority for everyone. Cause then,
Yeah.
I'll bet this has come up in another town.
probably,
Where-
let's see what Great.
Yeah.
Barrington, yeah.
What did they do?
Barrington or New Bedford?
Yeah, New Bedford. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
so are we gonna get to talking?
Yes.
about it?
Yeah, I think we should.
Because-
Maybe we can have that as an agenda item
Yeah,
at the next meeting.
yeah, that's what I was asking.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Can we actually have it for the following meeting just because we've got the public hearing?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
that makes sense. 2 meetings from now.
August.
Okay. So discuss and finalize CPA process fiscal year 25. So we had looked at this is a full packet.
So this is everything. This is incorporating all the changes you made last time. And then the follow-up basically was for me to make like the making it look nice tweaks to the pre-application, and then all of you continuing to pick where you left off at this meeting.
Right,
So this is my attempt to make the pre-application look nice. So you check one box that fits your project best, the ones that aren't applicable, which if someone wants to know why it's on the next page, are blacked or grayed out. And so someone would theoretically grade in here and put an X that they want to acquire open space or.
So I want to ask one other question too. Okay, so when I was reading through the whole thing from the beginning, I just had a couple comments earlier on, like on page 1, one of the things that it refers to is check the boxes that are relevant, but we're saying don't check them all.
Hmm.
So we're really giving a mixed message.
yeah,
Where does it say that?
Under number 1.
Oh, before.
Oh, yeah, it says 1 or more.
Yeah,
project, okay,
Fit into one. Of the.
and then on page 2, under number 2, I have the same thing that it doesn't just stress that fit, the 1. These are picky little things, but
no, that's what we need to
Clarify.
do. It's those picky little things that can come back to bite us.
It does, I mean, it
Oh,
doesn't
it's
mention
not-
multiple though.
That's, I think that's okay, because it's.
Okay.
If your project fits a yes description, or if you're not sure, okay, yeah.
Okay, then, the top of page 3, number 5, it says, GCBC. And it suggests that the way it's worded, it sounds like we would add conditions. And we're not gonna add conditions.
Right.
Where does it say that?
I have.
We,
under number
you
5.
do add conditions, though.
You do.
Yeah,
Okay,
we have.
don't, yeah, but wait, look up a little bit higher. We will, so the thing is we, okay. But we don't we make changes in consultation with the people who are doing it, right? Like, we just don't go and add conditions, just,
Really no.
Well,
We-
we have had conditions like on the recreation project at the end, we said there was a condition that it had to be, the site amenities had to be on land managed by the recreation department.
yeah.
So that was like a condition that we did add to it at the end, not in like the pre-application part.
Okay. Something about that didn't feel good to me. That's okay. Let's keep
And
going on.
or require additional agreements, which would be like the
Okay,
grant agreement.
This is just for me to know
Sure.
for next time, but for example, all those projects that the recreation department put in for or were given
Mhm.
permission to complete. Do people know that it doesn't have to come from the recreation department for it to be a recreation?
Yes, they do.
They do. Okay.
Yes, so let's see, I think these are all of the first years. That was the recreation department, that was the recreation department, that was the recreation department, that was someone else.
Oh,
That was the
okay.
pickleball people, that was Boaz, the trail.
Okay, I
stuff,
just,
so.
yeah,
And then this year, like the bike racks were not ours. But what happens is if the application moves forward, they have to work with the recreation department because it is on recreation land.
And the recreation department's the one that gets the money.
Yeah,
so it couldn't be a citizen,
it could be pitching the idea, but then they have to follow through and work with the recreation department.
okay,
Yeah,
and that's true with the historic
Yeah,
commission, and that's true with the, well, open space would.
Well, the historic projects so far have been private entities that have been getting the money.
yeah,
Right.
It's just about like who, because like the Cornice, the guy who owns the building, he's
Yeah.
the one who gets the money. If it's on recreation land, the recreation department gets it because they own the land,
Right.
manage the land.
What if it's not on recreation land?
that'd be
No.
great.
Yeah, then you don't, right, it can be,
It
someone
can be,
could.
But then it would have to be it would have to
Have
get like a,
Yeah,
like a conservation restriction to be permanently protected recreation land.
and people and
going
everyone
forward.
could go there and use it.
Right.
And no one's done one of those projects yet.
Yeah.
But
It was
Right,
like
like if you
plan-
wanted to set up like the fitness cluster on your front yard, like you could do that, but you basically have to give the city recreation department a permanent easement saying, in perpetuity, my front
public
yard
can
will be
use this."
available for the public
Right,
to, use this fitness cluster.
But most of the projects have been people proposing things to do in existing parks.
Right.
got it.
And that's why I felt that going to recreation. So I know we do have like 10 minutes
I'm
left.
sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's a good question.
It's chopping at the bit.
Yeah, I know. We haven't gotten to the.
We haven't gotten to part 2 of my whole list.
Yeah, yeah. Wisty, did you have more?
no, oh, well, keep,
Okay.
maybe keep going.
Should we just kind of go through? I mean.
Yeah, if Wisty, if it's stuff on this, let's go through.
Yes.
because-
No.
Yeah, so we saw maybe let's just keep going.
Yeah.
To the pre-application, we
Yep.
just saw, we could go to the full application. I think that's all good, that.
Oh, I did have one just thing.
Oh, sure.
Is in those instructions, one of the things that we talked about evaluating our process was that it was really good when different projects had supporters come in and that made a
Right.
difference. And that's not mentioned at all.
Well, that was something that we talked about at our last meeting, that when we have that information session for the people who have I think is the information session going to be before or after? No, the applicant sessions will be in early October, after the pre-applications have already come in. And at that point, we want to make sure that we let people know, those people who are applying and their applications are moving, their pre-apps are going to move forward into applications, the importance of having support.
Yeah.
That was part of the presentation for that day.
Yeah,
I mean, it absolutely makes sense to put it in here too, but
Mhm.
and we do have in question number 7, it says, what is the nature and level of community support for this project? Please attach any letters of support to your
See,
application.
but letters of
Right.
support are different than having people come and sit here.
Yeah.
And both of them take a big effort
Yeah.
on the person who's granted it, or in the application it is.
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So should we do the full application?
I can turn on my, I had the track changes on for that previous section, it wasn't that fast, but now you can actually see what you guys have changed, or added last time. That'd be helpful.
So we added attaching a map.
Right.
So you removed that question, or those questions.
Yeah, so I don't think we weren't gonna like add another question there. Those were just gonna get.
We were thinking that we might, based on what we come up with on the scoring sheet.
Okay,
Because first I was matching the questions to the scoring sheet.
yeah,
And it's like, oh, okay, like on the scoring sheet, value number 3, thoroughness of planning, actually addresses questions 1, 2, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So do we have other questions that sort of get at the planning and the thoroughness of the plan, or do we weight that more readily?
Mhm.
So, yeah, again, and it is kind of like going, but so short answer, we were just leaving those there as placeholders.
Okay, in case we had additional questions.
Right, in case we had additional questions coming up from, we have a number of things on the scoring sheet that I didn't see on the application, which
Mhm.
made it, like I've got some zeros here. Urgency. You know, overall application quality and urgency of project. Now, those seem like two different things to me. You can make a great application on a project that's not necessarily urgent.
Mhm.
So that one was always like sort of threw me when I was doing my evaluations. But there is nothing in our questions that talks about the urgency.
Mhm.
So one of those 4 or 5 might be like, why is this needed? Why is this needed now? Let's see. What are the goals? Just go, who will benefit, why and how? So I think there's an urgency piece that's missing in our question, like, why can't we wait for this?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I feel like the urgency ends up being very subjective. People are like, no, we need pickleball now because I like pickleball. Right? It's, you know,
Well, I think a case could be made for urgency, though. I mean, if it's a historic document, it's like, these things aren't gonna last another 6 months. We really need to do it now. Or, I mean, with pickleball, it's
right,
like,
but I feel like
everybody's
that
beating
should
us
just
in
be
the
part of
pickleball
their
game.
application in general.
What?
I feel like that should be part of their application in general rather than like, oh, cause tell us how urgent it is.
Why is that even an issue?
Right,
Why is
it's
urgency
gonna
an
be like
issue?
it's just gonna be a,
Because we
back
evaluated.
and forth.
Why is
Like
that?
they're applying because they wanna do it now, so like in general, they should just make a case for it. But like our scoring, right, it's a little wacky to be like, I don't know, they said it was super urgent.
Well, I mean, the other option is to like remove the question about urgency. I just want to have a balance between the questions and the scoring. That's my goal.
Sorry, Susan, I'm gonna get to you in a second. I was just gonna answer your question about why the urgency is even a part of it.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to our plan where we lay out what our priorities are for funding projects and what we want to see in projects. And I think in our plan, it says we want to fund projects that are like urgently needed. Because, you know, like an example would be like housing, like an affordable house or housing preservation could be used on like a building where like the roof is collapsing and they can, you know, it's urgent to do that project because it's going to save that building and preserve that housing.
But if they make that case in their application,
Mhm.
then why does it have to be a part of the evaluation of it? You know that it was urgent. The roof was gonna fall down. Like it's
Yeah.
already sort of built into the project.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
I think it's just because this
Got her hand up.
scoring, we at the end, we like add up all these scores and then we like see where they rank.
So
and-
could you take that out of the score system? Why would you have?
that's
to
what
have-
we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but then it's not, in the evaluation, it's not getting any points for being urgent. Like, we would know it's urgent, but the
Mhm.
score wouldn't be increased because it's urgent. Sorry, Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that part of the reason we were talking about this originally was that there are some projects that it's kind of like, we'd really like to do this someday. And there are projects that come up year after year after year, and it's time to get them done. And there are some projects that have been around for a long, that have not been around, and that it's like, well, this is, I think the pickleball is a good example. It's something that people really want, but if it doesn't happen this year, is that, you know, what does that mean? Can we wait a year on that? And I think that was part of what we were trying to look at, recognizing that we had so little money. So that urgency question was it may be a value judgment on our end, but it has to do with, do we need to do this in you know, in 2 years? What will there be a real issue if that isn't done? Because we try to get everything done within 2 years. So what will be the result if that is not done in 2 years? So it's very subjective. There's no question about it. But I think that what we were trying to get at is, you know, it's part of the why is it important question. And if we want to put something in, I wish I can't look at the form from where I'm sitting. But if we want to look at, you know, this questions about why is something important, then we could ask, and we could ask, and why do you believe it needs to be done now? And that
So-
would deal with that.
I have another example is like, if it were, say, in Highland Park, if trails are eroding. And so that it's just, you know, it's bad for the environment, it's bad for the trails. So if they make a case for that compared to signage would be really pleasant. But the erosion and what's happening to the trails, you know, could be dangerous, all kinds of things. And so in that case, you know, it could help you decide, okay, if we have X number of dollars, let's put it toward the trails and not toward the signage. And yeah, like that.
It's almost like the other side of the coin of not who will benefit, but who will suffer if we don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that it is pretty much 7 o'clock right now. Our application isn't gonna go out until August, right?
Have you seen?
So,
You could
We can-
actually delve really and finalize in July.
yeah, I was gonna say at our next meeting, like after the public hearing, this could be like the rest of what we do in that meeting.
Yeah, because this
Would be
needs
going,
to be done.
finishing up the application
Finalize the-
and finalizing that.
I think there's things I haven't seen. Yeah, I don't. know.
Right.
Yeah, we can-
Is she on the shared
And-
drive,
Yeah.
Christian?
Uh,
Becky on the shared drive yet?
I'll add you right now.
You know, we just share a Google Drive with documents. and stuff
Yeah.
on there, So,
Although I'm
Got a
not,
few of
I
those
know,
going.
yeah.
I'm not sure, a lot of this stuff, like I never see minutes on the shared drive, and I'm not sure
The
think
best,
stuff
the
that-
best spot to look is the city website, because that'll have the full process,
Right.
all the documents,
Mhm.
and then also.
And the evaluation tool is on there too?
Yep.
Okay.
The one that we used previously, not, I don't think this one with like the edits, that one.
No, that's
He has
not-
that one.
That's not the evaluation tool, that's.
Oh, sorry,
That's the
yeah.
application,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the,
Yeah, we're still
And how
working
did
on
the
it.
evaluation tool come to be? Did it come from another
we
place or?
just
you-
came up with questions and
And then.
Yeah.
we've been revising
and
it
then
every
we
year.
have found that it really is helpful.
You guys got shouted out on the Community Preservation Coalition website for it.
Wow,
Ah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Take that, Great Barrington.
Why not?
I've done that too with scholarship stuff. You know,
Yeah.
we have all
Yeah.
kinds of scoring ways to do that.
Yeah.
I just would be interesting to
It'd be
see.
good for
It's
you to
just-
review it for the next.
That's
meeting.
right.
I have a lot of reading to do.
Yeah, yeah.
You do. For me, it was, and of course, I came sort of late to the process. We were just getting started, but it seems that there was a lot of talk about what information do we want to get out of people? And then it seemed like there was another silo of how are we going to, determine what's important and score it? And there was never like an enmeshing of the two, and that's what we're trying to do now, is
Got it.
making sure that like, we ask a question, we score
You
it.
have a place to score it from.
Yes.
Yeah, I get
and
it.
then see, if you could see the charts that these guys end up creating
Oh,
based on our
amazing.
evaluation, based on what the community says.
Right, I've
You
seen,
know,
yes.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, I know that
yeah,
I've been the person making those charts occasionally, but.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe you will be in the future.
First year president.
Motion to adjourn?
Hold on, I think he had.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, so if you go to Community Preservation Committee, but then you have to go to the subpage
Okay.
funding, and then everything on here and even the scoring system.
Excellent.
Might be transparent for people.
Okay, thank you.
Is there as well.
Okay.
Okay, we had a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Who made
Okay,
the motion to adjourn?
Donna.
Donna?
The person who always makes the motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Becky.
And the second was?
Me,
Becky.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning?
aye.
That is unanimous.
You're supposed to do roll call. for
Oh,
the
yeah.
motion To adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
See, I always
Sorry.
think that once the motion's made and seconded, you're done
I
with
don't-
adjournment.
You could have two rogue members decide to end every meeting early if you had that.
That's true. All right, we'll do a roll call on adjourning. Susan,
Yes.
Wisty.
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
Becky.
yes.
And I'm a yes. So we are adjourned at 7:03 PM.